This is the Doing Business School Abroad podcast. I'm Ken Globerman, and if you're interested in going to business school somewhere out of your country, this is definitely the podcast series for you. Episode 7, Your Essays or Writing Samples. Hey there, Ken back here. Welcome back to our Doing Business School Abroad podcast series. Hard to believe we're already halfway through and we're in the back half of the series now. This is episode 7, and in episode 7, we're going to talk about another super important part of the application process, which is organizing your writing samples or your essays. So why is this important? Schools look for, with all the metrics that are sort of tied into your GMAT score or your GRE score, your GPA, your school that you graduated from, the courses you've taken. Schools are also trying to kind of get a sense of the softer side of their applicants, and the way that they have generally been doing this for several decades now is by asking for a writing sample or several writing samples in the form of essay passages. Though I must say that sometimes the writing request is not a typical essay, but could be some other form. For example, I remember when I studied, when I was applying to Stern, I had to actually write an internal memo. I had to write an internal memo about a particular topic that was presented to me as if I was writing to my staff in my department, right? So that's one example. I think I also put together like an animated storyboard, if I remember back in the day when I was applying to business school. Other schools might give some creative license and allow you to make, I don't know, a podcast or a video that is to demonstrate some creativity, an element about yourself. But be that as it may, every school that I've ever seen, every business school that I've come across, asked for some type of written essay as well. So I would say all schools request them, but the thing is that every school will have a different number that they require, and also are going to focus on different topics that they want you to touch upon in your essays. So let's just take one example. So you may have heard of the IE school in Madrid. The IE University has the IE Business School, which is a well-known business program in Europe that some of my students have gone to, in fact. And IE focuses specifically on certain types of skills that they want to hone in on. And some of those skills that they're assessing are their applicants' creativity, their entrepreneurial ambitions, whether they're overachievers or not, whether they can be described as self-starters, and whether they have a certain element of dynamicness in their personality, right? So these are just some of the skills that IE seems to value. So when you're writing your essays for IE, those are the type of core skills that you want to be able to demonstrate to the application office, and in fact provide information or back them up with relevant examples, right? So the tangible examples that demonstrate that you exhibit one or more of those skills. So let's talk a little bit about how IE arranges their essays. So they provide their applicants with 12 essay topics, and you can choose 3 out of those and submit those essays to the office. So let me describe some of those essay questions for you, because it's really interesting how how diverse the categories are. So, and this is straight off of the IE website. If you had the opportunity, what actions would you demand of the United Nations Security General and why? Right. So obviously, to answer that question, you have to be a little bit up on geopolitics. Describe the situation with the greatest ethical complexity that you've faced in your professional or academic life and how your input helped resolve it. So that's an interesting question that will get to your core ethics, right? And that's what that's really trying to elicit. Describe a time when you took a great risk and what was the outcome. So, you want to obviously answer this question if you felt there was something in your life that was particularly risky and wanted to highlight that in your essay. Let me just read a couple more of these. I don't have to read all 12 of them. Here's one. Do you think that the lifestyle of the inhabitants of your town or city reflects behavior that is in line with the concept of sustainable development? In your opinion, what should be improved? Interesting question. That's going to really require you to self-reflect not only on your values, but on how much you really understand the core values of the people around you. And then one more, show us an activity you enjoy doing. Tell us how you think it contributes to your personal and professional development, right? So here's a question that really gives you license to talk about you as a person. You might want to describe something fun that you're passionate about here. So for example, if you're involved with a dance club or a sports group, or if you're a avid football player, or if you're a triathlonist or what have you, this would be a great opportunity to showcase what you're passionate about. So that gives you a sense of what you're asked by, in this case, the IM Business School, but the questions that you would run into across any business school won't be too different. So beyond those questions, there's a few more motivational questions that the IE school also asks about. So aside from your responses to those essays, there are some more kind of short answer questions that you're asked to respond to, which is sort of different altogether from the standard essay questions. Let me give you a sense of some of those because they're really interesting. At what age did you first earn money from anyone other than your direct family, and how did you earn it? Interesting, I guess, to check how entrepreneurial you are. Describe yourself in 3 words. Sounds simple, but actually, rule of thumb, the less words that you have available to you, the harder something generally is. Indicate with 3 words how you believe your colleagues or classmates would describe you. Interesting. And let's go with one more. How do you want to direct your professional career in each of the 3 levels, in each of these levels, during the months after finishing your program? This is related to the question above. So the question before is, choose the reasons that most influence you to apply for admission to IE. And to follow that up, how do you want to direct your professional career in each of these levels during the months after you finish the program? So really, schools are looking for you to really describe yourself more fully in the written form. They're looking beyond the metrics here. They're looking beyond the scores, beyond the resume, the CV, beyond the references. And they're looking for you, and they're looking to understand what's underneath all of that. And that's what's going to come out in the writing samples you provide. So obviously, you want to be thorough. You want to answer the questions. You want to obviously write clearly and concisely in the language of choice. If it's English, and you're and your language, your native language is not English, you definitely want to get those essays proofread and edited by somebody who perhaps is a native speaker, and you want to put your best foot forward. And here's your chance to do it. So especially for people who have an element of their application which is perhaps not stellar, the essays provide you an intangible opportunity to make up for that, right? This is where you have a chance to really shine. So take advantage of it. How you structure an essay. We've talked about some of the different questions that you might have to deal with. Now, what do you do next, right? So in order to talk about that, let me just choose one of these topics. I mentioned it earlier from the IE essay topic questions. It was, show us an activity you enjoy doing. Tell us how you think it contributes to your personal and professional development. So if I was applying to IE, I would choose to respond to this particular question because, for example, I'm passionate about long distance running, something I like to do. It's something that's had a big impact in my life, and it's something at this point in my life, even after 15 years of running, it still continues to have an impact in my life. So the first thing you want to do is, for us, I like this, is to plan. So you want to definitely make sure you have a powerful outline as to how the structure of your essay is going to look. So what's your thesis, right? Let's start with that. You want to talk about how running, or in this case, we want to talk about how the activity of running has contributed to my life, both personally and professionally. So if I was going to outline that, if my first paragraph would introduce what would sort of introduce the premise of what I want to talk about, and then I would use subsequent paragraphs to, in my opinion, I like the power of three, to list 3 examples as to how it's contributed to me, both personally and professionally. So I would focus a paragraph each on 3 major themes of how it's contributed. And finally, I would summarize in a conclusion paragraph. And intro and conclusion paragraphs here do not have to be long. It's better to space things out to keep the reader kind of interested and engaged. And of course, your paragraphs have to kind of hang together so that people are, when they finish one paragraph, actually want to go to the next one. So sort of good structuring on essays within your paragraphs would simply introduce the paragraph right at the beginning, and then the last sentence or phrase in the paragraph would sort of be like a sub-summary of that and kind of naturally take you to the next thought. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of insight into there, right? So I haven't actually organized this, but let me just kind of talk it out real time. If I was talking about running, probably the biggest areas where it's contributed to me, number one, personally, has been healthy lifestyle. So I could tell you, I personally was heavier at one point in my life, eating a lot of junk food, fast food, working long hours, and running really helped me sort of modulate that, and sort of like it provided me with a barometer to help me sort of stay within boundary norms that I want to live my life by. And running is something, it's a tool that allows me to actually do that. If things are a little bit off track in my life, I try to increase my running and get myself back on track. Okay, so I use running in that way. Number 2, I would say that running has taught me, has helped teach me how to set a goal and actually achieve that goal, right? So for me, the goal was first to run half an hour, then it was to run my first half marathon, and then after that, I was able to run my first marathon, which was a big deal for me because growing up in New York, I'd always watched the New York City Marathon, never thinking that would ever be something I would ever consider doing. And when I finally actually put it into my consideration set, I was able to achieve it. And I can tell you this, now that I have achieved that and ran several marathons in my life, it transcends, because I now think that I really feel like that if I set myself out to do something, I actually really feel that I'm empowered to do it. So that would be the second thing that I would touch upon. And then maybe the third thing would maybe focus a little bit on leadership, because as I went through my life and got into running, which is generally a sport that's like a loner sport. Most of the time, runners run by themselves. But actually, I created a club to help people, help like-minded people who want to engage in endurance sports like running and triathlon to get together and actually support each other, and developed a networking ecosystem that provides a platform that many people have taken advantage of to both achieve their personal goals in endurance sports, but also just to develop their social network, develop their business network. And it's been such a great thing. And just to plug that, that's WITC, Warsaw International Triathlon Club, started in Warsaw, Poland, predominantly focused on expats and other Polish nationals who've lived abroad to get together through sports. But there's so much more than sports going on there. And that's something that I have started, not only started, but had to sort of like chaperone and grow into an ecosystem. And I've had, and I've lived through many different, let's say, like a child growing up, it's gone through many different periods, infancy, adolescence, teenage years, and adulthood. And I'd say the club has gone through all of those as well. And we're currently, let's say, in adulthood. The club has been around for about 7 years and going really strong. And even as my personal interest in running and triathlon changes, I've had to, as a leader, learn to step back and let other people take on more of a role that I once took on before. So those are the three things that I would focus on if I was writing this essay. So if you were writing an essay about something else, you'd want to take the same approach. You'd want to think about three things to make your point and make sure that those points hang together nicely. So organize your outline. Always try to think in threes, and make sure that every sentence and paragraph hangs together nicely. So in short, to summarize, the essay or the set of essays or writing samples that the schools ask you to submit are a really important part of the application process. You need to plan carefully. You need to look at the questions that the school is asking you to respond to, because every school has their own set of questions or characteristics that they're looking to sort of probe. You want to plan your essays. Make sure your essays are written well, clearly, grammatically correct, and get your essays checked by an essay proofreader or somebody to proofread them, particularly if English is not your native language. So on that note, let's end this podcast episode. The next episode is going to talk about another very special type of essay, which every school generally asks you to submit, which is your personal statement. So before jumping to that, I'll wish you a farewell and a wonderful day. This is Ken Globerman signing off. Take care. Bye.